Live from the bunker will not be seen this week so that we may bring you the following special program.
In place of a dark lord, you would have a queen! Not dark, but beautiful and terrible as the dawn! Treacherous as the sea! Stronger than the foundations of the earth! All shall love me and despair!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dead from the Dugout, the Live from the Bunker replacement show. The show that we pull out of the closet, dust it off a little bit every time that Jason goes somewhere or has something better to do. So we step in and attempt to cover for him. I am your host for today, your Dark Queen, and with me today I've got two co-hosts. Of course, my usual co-host, Cam. Say hello, Cam.
Hi.
And our guest co-host, Madman with a Show, who, he's starting to show up a lot in our stuff. He's kind of becoming one of the family. I think I've seen him more than my own children.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, but he's worming his way into our stuff. And, he's one of us now, pretty much. Say hello.
I'm just going to cry right now.
Oh, you felt good about that?
I felt so good about that.
I thought I was being
thank you for having me.
Yes, well, we're going to have you on today because we're going to do most of the work, right? So
I got a lot.
Anyway, this show it's very, we do whatever, we try new things, we just go crazy. So we're just going to, whatever happens. Before we get started, let's say hello to everyone in the chat. Who's in the chat? Weatherman's here today. Welcome, Weatherman. I see who's starting off here. I see 5 people in the chat so far on my little screen here. Weatherman has said something. Oh, Dave is here. Who else is here? That's it. That's everybody who's making their presence known. There are 3 other, at least, lurkers. Yeah. All right. Where do those pictures of the pillboxes come from? Google image search is your friend. Literally just pulled them right off the web. I hate to give away my secrets. You guys think I'm, taking pictures of the bunkers on my own property, but I'm not. It's just a Google. It's just a search. Pretty easy. All right. So now that we got that out of the way, we're going to talk a little bit. Madman's going to run the show. He's going to talk a little bit about a bunch of things that are going up in genre fiction, so pop culture, science fiction, what's going on. And then the last item we're going to talk about is we're going to talk a little bit in depth about the I guess it's the Texas anime law, SB 20 or something like that, if I remember. Yeah. We're going to talk about that last. So, and we'll just go with whatever happens. All right. Do you guys have before we kick off with the show proper? Nothing. No, we're good. All right,
good.
Let's go. Let's turn it over to Madman. Do you want me to pull up the?
Pull up the first one on here.
Pull up everything. All right, here we go.
Normally when we get into the summer months, people are like, "What can I watch? What can I watch?" Kids on there. There are a couple things that are coming through, and one of the things is a box set that's coming. Which I really wholeheartedly will be getting this on there. For those of you who love the James Bond movies, they are releasing a separate box set, literally just the Sean Connery movies. And before anybody clicks in on that, no, they will not be putting Never Say Never again, because that's Thunderball. It's Thunderball. But this is a good set on there. Now, I'm not certain if there are any special features to this or anything like that. It doesn't say on the packaging on that. I hope there is some. It is a 4K remaster. Price point is $100 for all the movies, and it has everything from Dr. No straight up to Diamonds Are Forever. I mean, it has one of my favorite movies, From Russia with Love. You know,
Well, that's a great one.
that's, you know, it's one of the best. I consider it's one of the best ones because there are no gadgets in that movie. It's just basically, it's just spies. That's it. You know, it's just, you know,
Well,
spy against spy.
well, there's some I mean, there's some gadgetry, but it's like spy gadgets, right? It's not these
Yeah,
fantastical.
it's not
like,
that Q. You know,
it's a small, small small recorder, or I
right,
guess
exactly.
there's a shoe knife, right? If I remember.
Right, a shoe knife, small. I think the maximum is like you know, this mini sniper rifle. Which,
Oh yeah,
which
yeah.
you know, which he uses once in the movie, and someone else uses it on there, and I, you know, it's great that they're doing this. I mean, are they going to do it with the other guys? I don't think so. I think, you know, if anything, you know, it shouldn't be. It's Sean Connery is the ultimate James Bond on there, and you know, it should be always celebrated because his films were very good. I mean, you ask anybody, it's pick and choose when it comes to the next couple of James Bonds. Always, isn't that with you guys? You know, you don't like, you know, every one of the films on the next layer of films. You know, whether it's Pierce Brosnan or every other guy. I can't even think right now.
Well, I mean, I've got a soft spot for Roger Moore because I was, those movies were the first ones that I saw as a kid on TV.
I mean, they probably will do a Roger Moore, but that's where they should stop.
But yeah, I mean, hot take. I don't mind Daniel Craig. I like the first, two movies there. It's a little bit of a different take on Bond. The last ones are maybe a little bit off the wall a bit, and they become woke and stuff. But I didn't mind him as a Bond. I know a lot of people didn't like him, but Connery and Moore are probably my personal favorites. But Moore is, like I said, nostalgia mainly. Connery's probably he's probably James Bond, I think. Yeah.
But not only they're releasing this box set, there is something else that is coming out. Now, we know that vinyl has been starting to pick up again. Yeah, yeah. I have no idea how the new remastering is. We got to wait for that. So far there's nothing. This is before we go on. It's June 10th, which according to Amazon, it's June 10th that this is out. So for those of you who want to pre-order it, it's already there for you. But one thing with the James Bond movies is the soundtracks, the music. Shirley Bassey and all the others that have sung on here. Now there is a company out that is starting to remaster. Yeah, someone already said the La La Land releases. The La La Land, and basically they are putting out. See if I click this right. Yes, there we go. The Goldfinger soundtrack, and it's going to be reissued, and it's coming out this month. It should be already. The pre-order should be on there. Last time I checked La La Land, you couldn't click on it, but it is a limited, and I say again, limited release. I think less than 1,000,
and that's just on vinyl.
And that's just on vinyl. And supposedly there's two versions of it. I think it's the Gold Girl one, and then another gold type gold bar version on there. And all right, and someone can vouch. La La Land is top notch. Yeah, and the thing about it is with this version of the soundtrack, it's going to have sections that were never put on the original soundtrack. So you're going to have like extra tracks that just never showed up on the original soundtrack. It's the first time ever. So this is literally when they run out of it, they run out of it. That's it. You ain't going to get it again on there. So it's a good thing with the way vinyl has been going. It's a $35 price point, $36 price point for this particular soundtrack on there. And they are doing and and they do Star Trek. I think they've done a Star Wars Friday the 13th soundtrack that this company has released a lot. So if you go to their website, you see that there's a lot of soundtracks that they're remastering in this time period where when it comes to vinyl and cassettes and VHS, is all making a comeback. I mean, what do you think?
about making
To come back
vinyl
on
making a comeback. I mean,
physical media.
well,
physical media,
go ahead,
yeah,
Cam.
that'd be great. I was gonna say physical media, great. You mentioned the vinyl thing. Is anybody talking about like VHS tapes coming back, or is that?
We
'Cause-
just had a festival 2 weeks ago here in New York, and basically, well, like a convention. And what were they selling there? Vinyl, VHS, audio cassettes, the works on
Wow.
physical media.
Because I got some VHS tapes in excellent shape that I'd be willing to part with.
Well, to look at them, how their quality is. Some of them are worth money these days now, especially the Disney stuff, the old packaged Disney stuff. The original packaging that they used to have, that big wide plastic that they used to put their movies in. Some of those are worth money now.
I've got like probably 8 or 10 of those.
Yeah.
So I think we're both. I mean, we're both big on physical media because they keep changing stuff, they keep editing things. I've been collecting a bunch of mainly DVDs and Blu-rays of what I consider to be good films. I've got a couple of the Bond films that I come across. I haven't come across Russia with Love yet. I got to get that one, but I think I've got Thunderball and anyway. But speaking of videotapes, I was just the wife and I go to garage sales and stuff on the weekends occasionally. I just picked up 2, 4, 6, 7 videotapes 2 weeks ago, and one of them is the original Star Wars without A New Hope on it, and I assume it's the doesn't have
version 1.
Yeah, I think so. I also got animated camera like this, animated Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
The other stuff is just kind of like it's the bunch of other stuff I just picked up. But
I have the Star Wars
are the ones
trilogy
that are
original box set, version 1, all 3 movies, including
not the. I also got the re-release, the special editions.
No. This is
I got those.
version 1.
Yeah,
version 1 box set trilogy.
Yeah, I have that actually unopened.
Oh, that's worth it. That's worth money.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, these are used, right? I picked it up at a garage sale, right?
Right here.
I'm always looking for stuff. If we ever get this channel to be big enough, I'm looking at, and get some subscribers and stuff. I'm always looking to, maybe give away to subscribers like on a monthly basis. Anyone who subscribes gets, or anyone who subscribes or was So I'm always looking for stuff. But I picked up these videotapes. I don't know. They're coming back. 50 cents each. I got them for. I mean,
yeah. I mean, there are some companies still manufacturing VHS machines.
Yeah,
with the exception of Pioneer, which just dropped out of the business.
Yeah, that's a problem for me. I don't actually have a functioning VHS player at this point, or VCR.
You can find them out there. eBay's got them like crazy. Even Amazon, they're still out there. I mean, some of them you might pay a hefty price. I recommend getting one that doesn't that's region free, because that'll open you up to a whole new world. Especially, and DVD players as well. You should always get a region free, because you're able to get if you like anime, you can get stuff out of Japan that's not even available in the US.
Yeah.
And there are versions of movies that are that are only in the UK, in Australia. For a while, a lot of the Doctor Who stuff you were only able to get in the UK first.
Yeah.
And it didn't get a US release. But then of course you can't pop it into a US machine to that point.
Yeah, it won't work. Yeah.
But
right.
But moving on. Now, another thing, this month, and like I said before, people are, June, July, August are like the worst month when it comes, other than, well, theaters are not that great now these days, but it used to be able to go, hey, you go to the movie theater, get to see something, but this, broadcast television doesn't have anything, and now these days it's like streaming is a little light. So basically Netflix, which has been, they've been hauling a lot of content coming into their system. They just, got the rights to Sesame Street. the new season for was it
Right.
so at the end of the year they're getting the it's going to be a shorter version of it. It's not going to be like a long version, but the short version of Sesame Street. But and then also all the anime they've been buying. But now, let me see if I get this right. There we go. We're going to get Alfred Hitchcock. We're going to get some really good Alfred Hitchcock movies, and they're starting out with like 6 of them. You know, again, the Vertigo, the Birds, the Man Who Knew Too Much, Frenzy's semi underrated, but it's just one of the weirdest ones. Family Plot is another one that's coming also, and that's starting next week on the 1st. And supposedly this is just the beginning of this, and basically going to be adding a lot more on there. I mean, I'm hoping they add Saboteur, which is one of my favorites.
It's not a limited time sort of thing, like just for the month. They're adding it, and it's going to.
As far as right now, they're just adding it. Psycho is already there. They've already had Psycho for quite some time.
Yeah.
This is just a new contract with Netflix. They're just buying into it. I mean, it could be through the summer, and then like every other streaming site, they yank it, and then it ends up on another streaming site. It'll end up on Tubi or one of the others. But it's nice to see that they're getting some good classic films like this. I mean, Hitchcock is one of the best on when it comes to the thrillers like this. I grew up with it, and some of the old stuff that Lifeboat is the other one they don't talk about much anymore. I don't know if you ever saw Lifeboat.
I haven't.
Yeah, the entire movie takes place on a lifeboat.
That's pretty cool.
And you know about Hitchcock. When his movies, he has to make an appearance in the movie.
Is he a body floating in the water?
No, people say, "Oh, it's a body floating in the floor." No, actually, newspaper ad for Thin and Fat. It's really funny. One of the guys reading through a paper while they're on the lifeboat, and you see the ad right there. You used to be like this, and you could be like this. But that's the quirky things with Alfred Hitchcock. He adds himself to this. In fact, there is I don't know who's streaming it, but there is a movie. The Restore Rear Window is fantastic. That they made about his life, which was really good also. And he does a fourth wall on that. He talks to the audience at one point on that, and it's what he did to make these movies and the people around him that basically he worked with, and it was a pretty decent movie on there. So it's like that. What's your favorite on his?
For Hitchcock?
For Hitchcock.
I mean, I haven't really seen many of Hitchcock's films.
Really?
I'm not a big, thriller, suspense, horror guy. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know too many of them. The Birds is probably the one I know the most, but
most iconic. Psycho and the Birds are the most iconic.
Yeah, Psycho, of course. Yeah. Psycho.
But you have Vertigo. Rear Window is excellent. If you haven't seen Rear Window, so many other directors have copied the gimmick of Rear Window, or they tried to duplicate it, but it's the way it's shot. It's fantastic. Universal Studios Florida used to have an exhibit called the Alfred Hitchcock Experience, and basically they did certain things where basically they reenacted scenes from certain movies. Like, for example, Saboteur, it's the Statue of Liberty scene. That scene itself, the iconic scene from the Statue of Liberty. The other one is they do Rear Window. And they do even the Psycho shower scene on there. They pick people from the audience to be part of the demonstration on there. And then there's a film presentation which goes into the history of Hitchcock, and there's an old documentary they add into it that, where Hitchcock talks about making movies, the iconic explanation of how you shock people, where you could be sitting in a room talking with somebody, and basically a bomb goes off, and it shocks the audience for that, couple seconds. And then you replay that scene, and before you start talking, you say, "Hey, listen, there's a bomb over here. It's going to go off in a couple of minutes." What's the audience screaming out now? Get rid of the bomb! Get rid of the bomb! It's going to go off. You shock the audience that way, but by not telegraphing the scene. And that has happened before, in many movies where they've telegraphed what's going to happen. Perfect example is one of my teachers in broadcast school worked with Paramount as he was sort of like a background guy, making sure that everything is running okay for any particular movie. And he was on the set of Friday the 13th, the original Friday the 13th. And basically there is a scene where the last girl, she's moving across the cabin, and basically she gets toward the window. Now, if you're familiar with Friday the 13th, body comes flying through the window. Fortunately, when you look at it, and you go ahead and you go out and take a look, the camera is panned too far left. So it kind of like says, something's going to happen here. And he even says, if the camera was a little bit more to the right, people would have had a bigger shock.
Yeah.
And that was Hitchcock. Basically, he made sure that basically, it was done that way.
Yeah, he's very. I mean, he is an iconic director. I mean, it's just
Cam, what about you?
I need to watch more of his stuff. It's just, it's just a matter. It's not really in my wheelhouse, but if you're in,
about
Hitchcock,
my favorite Hitchcock. I've not seen that many. I have The Bird, Psycho, and Rear Window. I think are the only ones I've seen. And Rear Window is the one that I, most.
Yeah, most people they love Rear Window. I mean, North by Northwest is a fantastic movie. It's that's on there, and there's a lot of little ones in between that people don't talk about. Like I said, Lifeboat is one of the ones that they don't talk about as much. Saboteur, The Man Who Knew Too Much. They don't talk about it, but they're great films. They're very well made for the time period that they came out of. Especially a lot of this stuff was during the Hays Code. So basically, either during the middle of the Hays Code or toward the end of the Hays Code.
All right,
so a lot of limitations.
Of Hitchcock's movies, what would you recommend then? Which one would you recommend that is not like, if you're like me and you don't like scary movies because they're too scary?
Well, Mr. Pensack puts it on the chat, Strangers on the Train, which is also overlooked.
And it's not too scary?
No.
Psycho people stabbing people, that's kind of scary.
No, well, there is murder involved, but Strangers on the Train is a great story about two people that meet up on a train, and basically they have issues with people in their lives. And
this is the murder.
This is the Murder for Hire, and which was also put into the movie Throw Mama from the Train.
Yeah.
Also, which was the basis of that film as well.
Maybe someone needs to make a Suspense for Me TV channel.
Yeah. But as long as it's not too scary, right?
No. I mean, it's if Psycho would be, I think, about the max. Frenzy is a serial killer. Family Plot is really good on that. It's basically just an insane movie in itself. Saboteur is a thriller intrigue, like a spy thriller intrigue, sort of. Think of the other ones. Lifeboat, obviously, they're on a lifeboat. They were shipwrecked. Their boat was sunk by, I think it was a German U-boat, and they're just stuck on a boat. Trouble with Harry. Yeah, that's another one that's fun on there. Matsui that said on there. I mean, there's so much. I mean, this is not like horror. I think Psycho would be about Frenzy tends to be a little rough onto the edges, but all the others, I mean, The Birds, and that's another one. Birds pecking on people. It's about what you're gonna get.
I mean, and that's the problem with Hitchcock for people like me who don't know of his works too much. Like you know of Psycho first, and then maybe The Birds. And you're like, he just does scary movies, and he's actually more.
It's more suspense. He's more suspense.
More suspense, yeah. And
yeah, that's
you might get, if you turned off by that, you won't not check out the better stuff. So that's what I got to do.
The earlier stuff before the 70s, before we went on there, that's basically what to watch out for on there. Once he gets to the latter, it's just some of them, they're good, but they're not up to the par prior to the what stuff out of the 40s and 50s.
Yeah,
on there. Yeah, Weatherman says it too on there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. It's a good thing that they're throwing all these classics out there. I mean, last night I was doing a slew of classic. I mean, actually, I was doing a slew of classic horror films last night on Roku. It was like the Universal's Monsters channel.
Yeah.
And basically, they have a lot of the classic movies. They go from the silent era to the 80s. On the Universal channel. And
so usually the vampires, mummies, werewolf, all those stuff.
I just watched was it Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, and that's a rare one.
Yeah.
That's a rare one because that's Bela Lugosi playing Frankenstein.
Oh yeah.
Lon Chaney's in it, but it's basically it's not original Frankenstein, but it's just Lugosi in the costume.
Let's say hello to people. Couple people show them the chat. PBR Street Gang, Matt Tween is here. Death Angel Shadow. What about his series, television series? I think he means. I think you mean Hitchcock's television series.
Actually, I streamed a while ago. There is a Hitchcock one, and it's on public domain. I forgot the name of it, which happens to be the one they banned off broadcast television. And it's literally, I mean, technically for that time period, this was pretty gruesome for it is because it's about magician and all that, and a woman gets sawed in half literally with a giant buzzsaw.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is there's no blood. You don't see any blood or anything like that to the nature. But back then, yeah, it was pretty rough for broadcast television.
Yeah. I can imagine. If you can't show a married couple sleeping in the same, you can't show having the same bed in their bedroom.
Oh yeah,
you're not going to be big on cutting people in half.
Yeah. I mean, the way you see it, it's just like I said. When I showed it, it was like people were saying, "Man, I never knew that they did this back then." I said, "Yeah, there's a lot of it there's stuff from back then that basically wouldn't be acceptable today, but not acceptable back then."
Yeah.
But one thing before we go further on our last thing on here, going to the anime thing, I got to bring this up. I can't, why is this still a thing? Popcorn buckets. Can anyone tell me this? Because it's, now we got the Megan 2.0 popcorn bucket. You're paying for overpriced popcorn, and you're getting an overpriced item to go with it.
Yeah, the last thing I want is to carry around a piece of junk out of the theater. I want to dump my stuff in the trash and go home.
Exactly.
They had one for Dune, like a worm's mouth, everything, which I thought was kind of. It was kind of.
They had an alien one where basically the popcorn was in the head.
Oh yeah,
yeah. This is a collectible thing for some people. They're into it, so.
I guess so. Yeah, people like it because they're still doing it. Yeah, I guess novelty is the only reason. Yeah. Do you get free refills with those things?
I heard on some of the occasions they have.
But you got to leave the film to get the refill, I guess, right?
Yeah, you got to leave the film unless you're going to watch for a second showing.
I hate leaving the theater when the movie's on. I paid for this. I'm not leaving. I'll pee in my cup or something, whatever.
But I don't want to leave. Movie I've ever done besides Gandhi has to be Tarantino's Grindhouse.
Yeah,
I sat through the 3.5 hours, 2 movies, without going to the bathroom, and I had a big jumbo Coke with me at that time. Oh man, and I had a big popcorn bucket on
See,
there.
the trick is you show up early and then you pound a bucket of popcorn and then you go grab another one right before the movie starts, and then
Cam
then
knows
you-
what he's doing. He's done this
That's right.
before.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, even the theme parks are, you have Disney. Universal does the new Universal Epic Universe does have popcorn buckets also.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's like I don't want to carry around. I mean, that's a pain to go on any ride with this stuff. You got to store it and back and forth and everything. It's like I want to be running light.
Well, most
Yeah,
people
but the thing
they
is-
use the lockers all day.
Yeah, or you go with your family and you make the dad carry all the crap, right? So the kids are like, "Hey, hold my stuff for me, Dad. Off I go." That's their jeez.
Yeah, the Figment popcorn bucket sold out. Like the line was, I saw those lines. Those were like people were streaming those, and it just basically that was incredible. That was incredible how long people were waiting just for a Figment one. My mom called me up and says, "Where can I get that Figment popcorn bucket?" She loves Figment because she has one of the original Figment plushes, and she still has it to this day. And we got it back originally when they opened up Journey into Imagination. You guys don't know how many years ago that was. That was the early days of
mid-80s,
Epcot.
right?
The early days of Epcot, which was like, what is it, 80s?
Yeah,
It was like 80s on there. So
early 80s.
it's how long my mom's had it. So
Weatherman supports Cam. He does the same thing.
All right, my man.
I wouldn't think of that, but I guess.
yeah, that's what I say. I wouldn't buy something like that. I mean, how much is popcorn now? I haven't been to a theater in about well over 2 years. I mean, you're paying a lot for the popcorn, and I know some of this stuff is like $35 and plus, just for the bucket.
Wow.
Depending
I
on
know
what it
it's
is. And some of them have multiple. I know, like what was it? Ghostbusters had like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah,
Different
clearly
ones.
there's a market out there for that stuff, but I don't know. I just don't have room for all these tchotchkes. Exactly.
Knickknacks.
Yeah.
And do you know which was the most insane popcorn bucket?
Hit us.
Terrifier 3.
Oh, what that one look like?
Oh, it was Art's head in a Santa Claus, because you Terrifier 3 is the Christmas one. It's just literally his head dressed as Santa Claus, and then just open up the top of the head. I think it was like a little blood on the side and stuff like that.
That's disgusting.
And it sold out. It sold out online in less than 10 minutes.
Sounds very family friendly.
Are you kidding me? Have you seen any of those?
No.
Well, I'm not a big horror guy, so I don't.
I know you're not a big horror guy, but I'll tell you this: that it is the cast itself had gotten sick on the set, including on the third movie, because there was so much blood.
Wow.
Well, you're getting your money's worth, yeah.
And they knew it was fake too. I mean,
Oh yeah, the special effects are fantastic. I mean, from a special effects point of view, and that it is a low budget film, they did a fantastic job. That's why they're getting That's why they're getting a fourth one. They're getting one more out of this one. Excuse me. But let's get into the main meat of this episode.
Let's do
Is
it.
this little guy, Texas SB 20?
I've
Have
heard,
you heard?
I've heard about this. I've seen it kind of coming across, but I'm hoping you can give us the straight shot on it, because
now,
a
before
lot
we
of things
go
like
into
that.
this, and before everybody freaks out, because I know there are some people out there that might be in the chat and say, "Well, no, this is insane on there." No, this is something that it is on its way to the governor's desk. It's already cleared, and there was let me just switch to this one over here. There was this out of Nietzsche Gamer that said the Democrats blocked the bill, but that was false on that.
yeah, my understanding is the bill is basically it's going to the governor. And
It's on its way to the
he's gonna
governor.
Sign it or not, and
It was pretty much.
he said he's going to sign it. So,
Yeah, he said he's going to sign it. And the thing about it is that because they said the Democrats were blocking it, only 2 people just stood to the side and just said, "Oh, we're just here. We're not voting for it." Everybody else voted for it on both sides of the aisle.
Wow.
This is, and most people, trying to push this away, and this is where the mainstream media on there. This is a major problem. Now, understand, the Supreme Court's going to blow this out of the water. But unfortunately, we're going to have to wait for someone to sue first before this happens. Or
Is it-
if
Is
Are
this
you
a
sure
satanic
this,
panic
sir?
kind of thing? Is
Are you
this where it's
sure
like,
the Supreme Court's going to blow it out of the water?
it's going to blow, well, no, I'm going to explain why it's going to blow it out of the water. There is precedence on this particular, on what they put through. And the reason, let me just bring it down.
Well,
to,
maybe we should just quickly summarize the bill first, so everybody.
well, this is the important part of it, to
Okay.
the whole nature of the monster. Let me see if I can highlight it. No, I can't highlight it. But, oh, wait, there we go. Okay. Now, mostly it's like the law is saying that depiction of a child younger than 18 of years engaging in activities described by Section 4321, which is also very vague. This bottom section I highlighted is the problem. Regardless whether the depiction is an image of an actual child, cartoon, animation, or image using artificial intelligence application or any other computer software. So what this means, and this is why there's a lot of people panicking on this, is they could make pretty much almost anything that has a child in it, whether it's a cartoon, whether it's comic book, manga, artwork, a cherub. You know what a cherub is, right? They could ban cherubs just on this law alone.
okay, what the first part you mentioned? What is the banned depiction? It's
basically
sexual.
anything that depicts whether. Yeah, but the thing about it is, here's the thing: what do they deem sexually explicit?
Mhm.
That's the other problem. Could be wearing a bikini, could be wearing a short skirt. They said younger than 18 years of age. Both of you have seen Dragon Ball, correct?
No, I haven't
Original
actually.
series. Okay, the original Dragon Ball series, you had a character named Chi-Chi, which Goku marries later on. She's in a little bikini outfit and stuff like that throughout the first couple seasons. That would constitute to be illegal according to this law. It's an innocent situation that basically they would say, "Oh, no, sorry, we can't have it." So what they're saying that if it looks like a child, then it's illegal.
Well, let me add to this. I'm reading one here, and it basically says that it criminalizes the possession or promotion of images that appear to depict children under the age of 18. So they don't actually have to, if they look like they're under 18,
it appears,
even if the character says I'm 20 or whatever. And here's the other caveat: are deemed quote obscene. So the question is, what is obscene?
Exactly. And that's what I've been talking about on my show for quite some time.
It doesn't say, I think sexualized is a lesser standard than obscene. And I think that sexualized might be, that might be, might not be covered, but it has to be obscene, but we don't know what that means, right?
Exactly. That's why this is such a broad bill. I mean, it's not explaining, and this is what's the problem in there when you hear stuff like age verification or age assurance, however you want to put it in there, the way they keep saying it. Those laws that are also, that's going to SCOTUS as well. In other words, there are groups of people, and this is both sides of the aisle. They're trying to bring back the old obscenity laws prior to the 1970s. Stuff on the Hays Code and all that. They're trying to return us back to that point. And this is one of the ways that they're trying to do it. They try to put out these laws, and they're trying to say, we're trying to protect the children. But the thing about it is, you're not really protecting the children. What you're doing is you're eliminating product that basically you deemed obscene.
Yeah.
If one person deems it obscene, it's illegal. I mean, we're talking one person.
Well, but yeah, potentially it could be.
Potentially, okay. It has happened. It has happened on age verification. This has happened in Kansas already. There are a group called NOSC, which is like National Organization on Sexuality, but it is it is a mask for what they really are, which is they are originally the organization called Morality and Media, and they are in the middle of a lawsuit in Kansas on their age verification, where they're suing four adult websites, and they're trying to rush it through before SCOTUS rules on that as well, finding that this that is also it's against the First Amendment. Because literally, you're telling someone that says, "Well, my child saw something they shouldn't have saw." I said, "Well, do you have protection on your computer?" "Yeah, but I didn't put the protection on a laptop." Okay, well, that's your fault that you did that. Now you're suing a company that has no responsibility, that has done more than enough to protect children from coming on the website. There's a point to that point, and this is what's happening with this. They're trying to say, well, we want to get rid of the LGBTQ books that are in the schools. We want to basically take away all these other stuff that depicts children in entertainment. Now, I understand I'm against those books in the grade school and stuff like that, but there's another way of taking care of that, not by writing laws like this.
Well, I think generally laws with let's pretend that there's good intentions behind this. I don't know what the people's intentions are, but let's say they are for the moment. A law that is not specific enough and allows for someone at some point to say, "Oh, yes, this applies," in a way that it wasn't intended originally. Let's say is one of the core problems, right? So obscene. The famous, what is obscene? I don't know, but I know it when I see it, right?
I'll know it when I see it. Pornography, the definition of pornography.
Right.
What's the definition of pornography?
That's the one that Cam's talking about.
Right. Now,
that definition.
So there's a whole host of problem, and I don't engage with this too much, but there's a whole host of problems with anime to begin with. One of them, which I think is a false problem, is that, and let me know if I'm getting too off topic with any of this, is that, the anime style is cutesy, right? So all these characters, people say, "Oh, that's a child," or whatever. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. Even, some of these people try and skirt. It's like, "Oh no, they're 18 or whatever." But, even someone who's clearly an adult, has a cutesy look because that's anime or manga style. It's a cartoon. It's always going to look more cutesy than something that isn't. And so a lot of people say, "Oh, well, that must mean it's a child," when it isn't. Now, like I said, there are some people that skirt that as well. And I think we could all theoretically understand that there is a situation, I'll try and keep it PG here, but you can imagine that there could be an animation or art or something created that depicts someone who is clearly a child doing things that is illegal, doing things that are illegal, right? And I think most people would say, even though there is not an actual child involved, would say, well, this is just because it's animation doesn't mean it's not depicting this illegal thing.
That's exactly what's exactly in the SCOTUS ruling. Is
right,
that
okay.
Basically, if it's a child that exists, a living child that exists, it's illegal. But if it's a depiction of in a photo, I mean, in a drawing, a statuette, a piece of artwork, or a cartoon or animation, it's not illegal.
Where there's no victim.
There's no victim.
Yeah.
It's within the First Amendment.
Okay.
And SCOTUS has ruled on this numerous times.
And the thing is, also, just one other thing about this bill, like this is, I mean, Western world has a pretty, we have a pretty solid definition of what child pornography is. And it doesn't, like this bill says, again, it's obscene. So that's a standard that, would, I assume, would be lower than what child pornography is already illegal. So, you can't, whether so this is it seems to be a lesser standard, which, no one knows how far, how much lesser.
Well, that's the problem. How far would they go with this? Now, understand, People say, well, they have all what you said, Cam. They have all this stuff, overseas in Japan, stuff like that. What about Netflix's Big Mouth?
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, you're not familiar. Oh, you're not familiar with that. Well, Netflix Big Mouth is a series that's on Netflix. It just did its final season, and basically depicts children, which is voiced by comedians. Which your first season was decent, and then he just got really LGBTQ all the way through. They're talking about sex and self gratification. Through the whole thing. I mean, they have a hormone monster in there that shows up every once in a while. When kids like, oh, he's horny. And this is stuff that would be under this law. Now, of course, you remember Cuties.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to get rid of Cuties. It was like, no, it's okay. It's a situation, but that's something that there's a lot of questions on that.
Well, that was a big. I think that was a problem because it was real children being, filmed in these things, and with these overtones that were real. I won't even say questionable. They were off, and seemed to be appealing to, weirdos. But okay, so the thing I was talking about before, I mentioned something that clearly. Now you're saying this. The Supreme Court says, well, that's outside of the law. Okay, so let me take it out. Or acceptable within the law. I guess. Okay, let me take it out of the realm of the law for 1 second, though.
Okay.
So that's one thing that, in my opinion, is not acceptable to me. Right. I have no interest in that kind of perversion, drawn or not. Right. That's out of bounds. Now, whether it's legal or not, like I said, I'm setting that aside for a second. But let's take the other extreme, where you have a character, an animated character that's clearly in the story and depicted as, let's say, an 8-year-old, and they are at the beach with their family, and there is no overtones of anything perverse. It's a family story, clearly not like wink wink nod nod, nothing like that. It's simply a family story, and there is a child wearing a swimsuit appropriate for a child. The question is whether a law like this could be misconstrued or used to come down on that, and say, oh no, that's now suddenly you're a criminal because you're doing what no one ever would object to in the real world if it was a real child, for example. And that's where you've got your danger in this kind of thing. And I'm giving these two stark contrasts to which hopefully.
Well, no, it's exactly. This is why the Comic Book Defense Fund is ready to go to war on this.
Well, the Comic Book Defense Fund, well, maybe.
Yeah, I know. I know what you're going to say. They haven't been the Comic Book Defense Fund in many years, but I think they're ready to gear up for war on this.
See, at the same time, it's like these things shouldn't be an issue. Like I said, in my mind, I believe I'm a reasonable person. I gave one example that's clearly unacceptable, and I gave one example that clearly is acceptable. But the problem is there are weirdos out there in the world that are doing things like creating these explicit depictions that are they claim they're targeting children with them. They are making books and literally using taxpayer money to put that in the hands of children, and saying, here, you need to. I mean, sometimes in classrooms, So I'm saying that there's a reaction to all these things, and I'm not saying this is a good law. I haven't studied it. I don't know all that, but this is what happens when people try to do things they know are wrong for their own nefarious purposes. Then you have knee-jerk reactions that go the other way.
But this is not the first time that this has happened. Weatherman puts it up best on there. Sounds like the return of Tipper Gore censor police returning.
Sure. Yeah. This is not new. This has been going on. I mean, look at the comic industry. The seduction of the innocent, right? This is famous throughout time.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, Cam, you're suggesting that there's been a certain lately within the last 5 to 10 years in school libraries, there's been books that have been fairly explicit about sexuality.
Not fairly, blatantly
No,
explicit.
blatantly. No,
Okay.
he's right. Blatantly.
All right, I'm trying to be a little blatantly explicit about LGBTQ issues, and so that you're suggesting that this is this is a reply to that to try to get rid of that.
Well, I'm not saying that's
material.
even. I'm not saying it's even LGB anything. It could be heterosexual. Where there
it hasn't been. It's been.
Yeah,
it's been
right.
that.
Let me explain this, and I'm going to try to. Hopefully, the YouTube gods will be with us on this, and try not to be really graphic. But some of these books have been a how-to
Yeah.
to go online and find other LGBTQ for sex.
Yeah.
I mean, there's instruction on how to self-gratify.
They're outright.
It's outright. Now
we don't have to get too detailed in it. I think
no, we're not going to
everybody-
do detail. But the
anyone
thing is,
who's
it's
been
out there.
following the news should know about these issues.
Believe it
The
or not,
thing
there's
is,
a lot of people that don't.
Yeah.
I still
The
have people
problem with
who clip on my show, and they said, "I've never heard of this before."
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
The problem with this is that I'm a free speech type person. I err on the side of more freedom, not less. But I think that the problems that, let's say, the citizens of Texas are having with this material that are getting into their schools, I don't think you need a bill to do that. I mean, it's a public school, elementary school or high school library. You can surely, the parents can vote and put in or out school board members that will take the right decision that they want. I don't know that a bill like this is necessary if you are concerned about that and you want to prevent that problem. It seems to be that's the way to solve it.
Yeah, but they try to mesh into words, and they say, "Well, you're banning books. You're banning books. This is a book ban. It's always a book ban." But see, the thing about it is, that's not banning any books.
Well, you can ban books.
No. This is the type. What they're explaining is that this is it's literally you cannot get it or something. No, you can go out and buy this on Amazon.
Yeah,
If you want to buy this for your kid on Amazon, that's your problem.
Yeah.
It's a situation.
Yeah,
it's not unlike the Dr. Seuss books, the 3 or 4 that have been removed from the marketplace that you could no longer get it. I mean, if you can find it, you're going to pay an arm and a leg for it. Why were they removed? Because people were offended by the characters in the book.
And that's my point. My point is, I mean, it's not to say that, hey, we're not, we're in this district and we're voting for school board members, and those members are going to vote, and we're going to prevent these books from coming into our library. That's perfectly legal. That's not banning books. I mean, the book exists still. It's not like we scoured the earth and burned every copy of it. It exists, and you can get it if you want it. It's just that people don't want their children to be exposed to it in a school library, and parents have that right to limit what their children are exposed to. Children are not free in the sense that adults are free and they can do whatever they want. No, you can't drive a car, you can't drink. There's tons of things you can't do as a child. You can't vote until you're an adult, and we're perfectly reasonable to limit the things that children have access to.
Let me comment on that. Where this whole thing, I'll just be very blatant. Perverts are using book banning as a boogeyman to intimidate people into allowing groomers to target children for abuse. That's what's actually going on. But so this claim of banning books, no, the reality is, let me put some fact to this, is that libraries have a budget, and there are certain books they choose to put in front of children and ones they don't. So in fact, when they choose that book, they are displacing another book that might not be that. So this rending of clothes and claiming, oh, we're such righteous, principled people against book banning, they are full of, they're lying scum. Okay, these are the same people that would block a book on the Constitution or the Founding Fathers from being available to a child. So those people can go straight to hell, outright. All of them are lying scum. And this might sound strange. Librarians are some of the worst people on the frigging planet. These people are disgusting as a whole. That doesn't mean all librarians are, obviously, but these people are perverts that have infiltrated public entities and use it to forward their private agendas that target children. And I have zero tolerance for that garbage.
Now here's
Let's
the other
end
thing.
the rant.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Here's
You
the other thing
can
about
always
this.
tell when Cam is on a rant because his
Oh,
voice
he's
gets
on a
little
great
bit
rant.
higher.
He's on a great rant.
He gets going.
But here's
I'm not-
here's the point
I'm
I
not
want to make on
disagreeing
this
with
too.
anything.
Here's the other thing about it. Besides, of course, the barbecue in Texas, what do you think Texas is known for in the entertainment world?
In the entertainment business,
Mm-hmm.
football, is that what you're? I mean, I'm not sure where you're
No.
going with that.
Texas has the biggest crunch on the western part of the anime industry. Sony's Crunchyroll
that's true.
facilities
They're all down
is
there. aren't they?
is in Texas. So is Yen Press and many others that work out of Texas.
Really?
So from a corporate point of view, how is this going to, if this law goes into effect, which is when it's signed, it's September 1st, what is going to happen at that point?
Mm.
Can you
Yeah,
hold on
I
one
don't-
second here? I'm going to be right back.
Yeah, I
somebody's
got a
at my
couple
door.
things.
Hold on.
I'll mention that we were talking earlier that whether is this bill likely unconstitutional? Madman was saying yes. I mean, based on this, he's probably correct. There was a 2002 case, Ashcroft versus Free Speech Coalition. Law in question was the Child Pornography Prevention Act, which is similar to this bill. And that we were talking about depictions, whether virtual or computer simulated, and that ones that did not involve actual minors. In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court ruled on that case that outlawing virtual images of minors that would not otherwise be considered obscene was unconstitutional.
Okay,
So,
well, that's it. Would not otherwise be considered obscene.
Yeah, of course. That's important. Yeah, of course. So you can't, I would suspect that the decision would be, similar in this case. Like these cases are similar. This article is suggesting it would probably be a similar decision, so that this law would probably be found unconstitutional, likely because it's too broad. I don't know if I want to go. I don't know if we want to talk about. I mean, Mattuine, you made a good point there earlier. Here, I don't know if do we want to talk about this? I'll put it up there. This argument about satiating, or just I don't know if we want to get into that. I mean, I think that's that's a psychological question, and I'm interested in that if it's true or not. But there's there is two sides of the coin. There's one saying that the more you're exposed to these things, the more it doesn't say
that's like saying
the opposite. I don't know which is true myself personally.
No, that's not how things work with humanity.
Well,
you don't. Oh, I'm going to do a little bit of a bad thing, and that will make me fine. That's not how things work.
Now, the same argument was used against first-person shooters, right? So, first-person shooter video games were said, oh, you're turning everybody into murderers, and the actual the actual murder rate has dropped across the world since these. Hold on, since these things have come out. Now, is that because there could be other factors, but you can't. There's not a direct correlation. You can't say, well, kids are playing these murder games, therefore they're less likely to murder because they're satiating their murder urges. I don't know.
I would like to point out the difference between these things beyond what we're talking about. Whether it satisfies whatever urge there is. Number one, what's being depicted. If you're playing Call of Duty, you're depicting a war, soldiers doing, fighting other soldiers in a war. This is something that, like it or not, is accepted in the world. This other stuff is not. It's not like, oh, well, there's a good version of that. There's an acceptable, there is.
Trying to make it acceptable.
I know, and the answer is no. It's never acceptable. It is disordered. It's like it's not something that ever is valid. It's simply not because of nature, right? This is biological, a violation of proper biological interaction. It's like someone who says, "Oh, these weirdos." It's like, "Oh, I'm going to marry my car." Well, you could just laugh that off as ridiculous, right? Because there's no a victim there, but the depiction of that of marrying a car has no victim and doesn't portray a victim that's real. You know what I'm saying? A car can't be a victim, but it is as disordered and bizarre and never valid. It's just never valid because reality, not because of my opinion. You see what I'm saying?
I'm bringing that up as a point.
I understand.
Yeah,
there's different facets to the
there's
argument.
Death Angel Shadow making a reference to our other show from last night, which is
Sorry about that.
a much less serious topic. You need a mind wipe and a new personality installed. And if you watched last night's show about Babylon 5, you'd get that reference. But yeah. So
well,
anyway.
The anime thing is famous for fan service, right? Where it's like, oh, look, you have some character and like even shows that are clearly not obscene and things like that. The beach episode is a famous thing, right? It's like, oh, the characters go to the beach and
Bathhouse.
The Japanese are big on public baths and such. But again, that's very different from depicting a child doing things that is never valid for a child to do.
I mean, Japan does have very, they're a little bit less restrictive than the West is on, depicting children or underage people in that.
Believe it or not, when it comes to sex in Japan, it's pretty censored, especially like in pornography.
But
because basically when they release,
for sure, but not in this way though. But
actually, believe it or not, the animated stuff, stuff that even the illegal stuff is somewhat censored. Not all of it, but it is censored. Once it reaches outside Japan itself, then you'll find the uncensored ones. On that, most people don't realize. It's just that they said, oh, they're decadents and they have all this porn and stuff like that. They said their stuff is just everything is blocked at certain points.
Yeah, but we're talking about anime and depicting these characters in a sexualized or in a sexually suggestive situation.
Yeah.
It's not,
but see, the thing about
they're a little more open about that stuff.
Yeah. See, the mistake that's made, and most people on there, they bring back Goblin Slayer, redo the Healer, interspecies reviewers. They bring up these animes all the time because they're very explicit. Well, except Goblin Slayer. Goblin Slayer, episode 1. It's only episode 1 that there's a segment on there, and it's not even that explicit out of anything. But the mistake is, most people don't realize is, in anime and manga, there's something for everyone. And you have your G-rated, your PG, your R, and your NC-17 stuff.
Yeah.
Or what you would call porn to that point. But, people don't realize that. They just focus on the stuff that is NC-17 and above. And they say, oh, look at Redo the Healer. Men made that, and only men would watch it. Believe it or not, Redo the Healer, the biggest audience for it were women. Why? Because the tale itself is something even the West has done. Hollywood has made movies like this for many years, going all the way back to the 70s. I Spit on Your Grave and Miss 45, many others that has a similar plot line to Redo the Healer.
Yeah.
Now, as far as Goblin Slayer, they said, oh, why are they attacking the women and ripping up? They said, because they're monsters. They're evil. This is what they do. They, they're not, oh gee, gonna kidnap you, wrap you in ropes, and hopefully that you'll be saved. There's some realities in fantasy movies.
What's the reasonable solution to this? Whatever this bill says, what would be the reasonable response on how to deal with this? Just top of my head, it's like, well, you could say this particular thing, like I made an example, earlier on, and that I say is not acceptable, at least not to me, and said this is something that should not be publicized, right, or commercialized. At least you can't sell this. It crosses this line. But let's say you did say that, then what prevents someone from saying, well, oh, look, we technically didn't do that. It's essentially that, but we sidestepped it. It's like, I don't know this is anything you can actually restrict, you know what I'm saying? Is there any way to actually target the things that are really out of line, and that's assuming that everyone would agree what's out of line, but without just having it skirted,
There's always going to be something out of line.
Yeah, sure.
Even in the West, even in Hollywood. Okay, you've heard the terminology snuff movies.
That's what humans do.
Back years ago, they used to have snuff films that you were buying underground places that basically, you shouldn't be watching them because basically it's actually somebody dying.
Yeah, someone can always do a black market kind of thing. I'm saying in terms of law, what's
it should follow the Constitution always, the First Amendment, because you have to remember, and Jeff brought it up on there, because the cartoons aren't only for kids. Cartoons is cartoons, animation, anime. It's an art form that basically tells a story. You're telling a story. This is one format. It's cheaper than making a blockbuster movie.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, that's a big part of it too, because animation isn't real. There's not whatever's happening there is not, and same thing with video games. A real person is not involved. I think reasonable people can agree that if there is, there's a hard line here, right? Is like, if there is an actual victim, a real person, that's a completely different situation. That I'm not saying that everything on one side is okay and everything on the other side is not, but I'm saying that inherently there's a different issue in play because,
yes, I would agree.
Obviously there would be a victim of this if this was being depicted with a real person.
Yeah.
And that's not a First Amendment issue then. It's gone. That's out the door. There is an overriding issue, and that is someone's, rights. Right, exactly. Violence being done to a person.
Yeah.
Now, take it for example from anime. Anime itself has templates of the characters. You can go down the list of every anime from the beginning of the industry to present day. You will find a character that looks like another character from another series.
Sure. Yeah.
On the basis. Why? Because they use the same template characters constantly. So basically, who are they depicting? Who are they? It's the same. It's the same thing. It's like I don't know if you remember the old matchbook covers that they used to have. The draw this, and you get into the academy, and those are templates. It's the same type of template. The pirate, the turtle, and all that. That's a template. When you look at, say, for example, Family Guy, Simpsons, American Dad, those are all template. They're all templated characters. They don't exist. And the thing about it is, this law would affect those TV series as well. I mean, you're already getting South Park overseas on Paramount Plus. They're picking and choosing episodes not to show. And it's for a variety of reasons. And South Park is a template also. This is where you get to the point where, and there's a book out called The New Puritans. The war on fun. There are people that just out there that just doesn't like it. They don't like certain things. And it's like what Howard Stern said many years ago. If you don't like my show, just turn it off or turn to another station. Nobody's forcing you to watch this stuff.
and that's the general attitude that I've always had too. It's like this, there are
Same.
things that being offended by something, you have a solution to that. Don't watch it. Right. But you can see that leads to a slippery slope as well. Right. It's like, well, this or that. And this gets to a real ugly area of, oh, this is consent. It's like, blah, blah, blah. These weirdos play this consent game. It's like, oh, well, see, they can consent to that. It's like, no, a child doesn't consent to anything, by definition. That's why they're, they don't have the rights and responsibilities of an adult, but they play that game. There was this whole weirdo thing where, oh, your baby has to consent to having their diaper changed. No, that's a weirdo thing that someone is building for a nefarious purpose. It's, you see what I'm saying? There's, there are weirdos in this world that will always look to exploit a principle, like freedom of expression, right, for evil purposes. So it's very, this is the challenge of a free society, right? How you deal with these things, how you preserve freedom without using it or having that freedom used to abuse and, victimize people.
Yeah, because you got to remember how many countries now are banning anime. You got Russia, you got Australia, New Zealand, the United Kingdom. Just now recently, Russia is banning the figurines.
Yeah, you see, anime is getting trapped in this whole thing. It's like you said, it's just a format. It's not, and because it's bright colors and cutesy in a cartoon, people say, oh, well, that's for kids. Well, again, fans of comic books and animation know that's not the case. And like you said, in Japan, it's very clearly no one in Japan is saying, oh, because this is anime means it's for kids. That just wouldn't even be a question there, right? Because it's just a format to them. Same thing with manga.
Yeah, but the thing is, it gets a bad symbol because, for example, in Crunchyroll, and someone came out of this on a podcast here on YouTube that says, we have people that came over for Funimations to Crunchyroll, and some people in Crunchyroll itself, they still believe that anime is pornography. They think it's porn, straight out porn. I'm like,
yeah,
how can you say that?
Well, yeah, that's a misconception that's been created, because they can point to an example and say, "Oh, see, look at that," without, and maybe that's what results in laws like this,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's that they're trying to push the gambit because like I said, this law, when it's signed, it goes into effect September 1st, and someone said it best. Is that if this law goes into effect and SCOTUS hasn't knocked it down yet, and SCOTUS is going to wait till there's their first case on this, is someone's going to walk into a comic book store, look around, and say, "Hey, I don't like that up on the wall. I don't like that up on the wall. I'm going to sue this guy."
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to hurt a lot. And that's the problem. This is going to hurt certain businesses, people on there. And the thing about it is, some people might say, well, they're not going to come into your home and look into your stuff on that. That's happening in the United Kingdom right now.
Sure.
You got people who are making memes and stuff like that, putting it online, and suddenly the cops are at the door, and then now they're going through their DVD collection, stuff on their books and stuff like that, trying to find something to basically arrest them on. And they say, well, no, that can't come here. I said, well, that's what these laws are. Whether it's this law.
There's tons of people who thought that would never happen in the UK either, and it did.
And it did.
Yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Yeah, the slippery slope is a thing.
It's once you open up that Pandora's box, it's hard to close it again. That's the problem with this. And that's why I brought up that section there. You start. What's Sony going to do? Are they going to sue? I think Sony's going to sit back on this for just a bit and see, if SCOTUS is going to rule. But eventually, this is going to go into lawsuits on Texas.
Yep. Someone's going to have to stand up and take the hit to. And
something? Everybody's been busy on
right?
Yeah, everybody's been busy. Free Speech Coalition, Comic Book Defense Fund, the ACLU. You have all these organizations that now they're working overtime to try to knock a lot of these laws out. Because every day you hear a new one gets cropped up and a new one, and then people pushes it aside and say, it's not going to happen. It's America. We got a constitution. Yeah, we have a constitution, but you got crazy people in different states that push these laws. And like I said, there's that book, The New Puritans. They're trying to reverse gears. Remember, there was a time they used to arrest George Carlin, Lenny Bruce. They arrested producers and actors for showing a particular movie in a movie theater at points. Recently, and this is recently, there was a lawsuit by Morality Media to remove Cosmopolitan and Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition from the front counters of Walmart because they deemed it pornographic, and they won that case.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, Cosmopolitan, it's a book about, for women, talking about women's issues. Okay, it talks about sex and stuff like that, but how is it pornographic?
I don't know. I've never read one.
Well, no, I'm just saying in general. It's it's a magazine for women that, women have sex issues. They have relationships issues. They have weight issues. That's all that book is. Yeah, they have some content that basically, dresses and stuff like that. But that's, of course, they're selling to women to that point. And then the swimsuit issue is, okay, it's women in bikinis. What do you have against women in bikinis? But see, the thing about it is, you go to places like Indonesia and Thailand, some of those bikinis are against the law. And you can be arrested for wearing those.
Yep.
I mean, it's a scary thing when you hear these things.
Go
ahead.
I think it's important, though, that this freedom isn't free, and it's a constant fight, and there's going to be a push and pull back and forth all the time, and that's what citizens' job are to be vigilant about these things, and come down on one side or the other depending on how they feel.
And the thing about it is, they use words. They use scary words, to that point. Pornography, obscene.
Well, that's the question. In this law, is obscene defined?
Mm-hmm. No, it's not.
Okay, so that's the difference. So in this paragraph you're showing here, section, the B, the whole thing above the highlighted section and the highlighted section, it says promotes obscene visual material, blah blah, containing a depiction, blah blah blah. Okay, so now, if that said actual, instead of just saying obscene, if it said, if it depicts a someone younger than 18 engaging in a specific activity that we know is not legal, would that change that? Because obscene is a basket of whatever, you could define that. And if it said this specifically,
they won't put that into law. They won't put that particular language, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to, they scare people into this. It's literally, and the terminology is, we're protecting the children.
Uh-huh.
And people, most of the politicians who vote for this, most of the people who look at this, they don't read the law. All they know is it's a law protecting children.
And most laws are written anyway with some availability of interpretation, right? There's the famous, what a reasonable person would consider to be, et cetera, right? So they're not, specifically defined, right? Like any law is.
It's like the Miller's test. On it. Like the Miller's test on the law. What's obscene, what's not obscene. It does it. What's the terminology that makes it an artistic expression to the point on there, and it's. It brings it up, and I bring up the episode of The Simpsons, the Itchy and Scratchy episode where they banned Itchy and Scratchy, and they changed it, and they said like, "Oh, look, Itchy and Scratchy, you're just sitting there drinking lemonade," and then all the people that rushed to that, they went back to Marge, and it says, "Listen, they're bringing David into the museums, and we got to go ban it." And she's like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
It's a piece of, it's a piece of art. Kids should see that. It's an artwork. And say, oh no, we can't have that, and that's the mentality. Because they're trying to deem. I mean, you look at stuff years ago, some of the books that ladies chatterly lover, that used to be on a ban list. Then you had movies like Last Tango in Paris, which was considered X-rated, Caligula X-rated, which it wasn't really X-rated. Someone sat there and says, I don't like what's on the screen, and I think it's pornographic or obscene.
Yeah.
And,
for me, it comes down to, I have a broad tolerance for things that I don't like, in terms of that, but I have a hard line when it comes to children, because if I didn't before, the last several years have taught me that that's being exploited. Any liberal view I have on that is being exploited to victimize actual children. And like we were talking about, these essentially pervert instruction manuals that are grooming children. They exist, I mean, and so again, I don't wield the law. I don't make laws, but I'll tell you what, that I'm against that crap,
But meanwhile, not
especially,
to get.
And especially some of these censorship stuff is based on control, right? Not only do I not want to see this, I want to make it so that you can't see this. And provided that it's not illegal or harming somebody, this generally should not be. Well, I would err on the side of
children should be a protected group.
Yes, of course.
Right. So, but again, a real child is not the same as a drawing. But it's again who you're appealing to. What are you appealing to with that? It's. Again, you talked about, the murder simulator thing. Well, there's a difference between playing a video game where it's clearly a game and saying, here's how you stalk and murder someone. These are different things, and they're appealing to different people for different reasons. I don't know, man.
I bring it up because it's a difficult.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
It is difficult,
and we've got lots of data that those first person shooter style games don't appear to have any correlation with crime rates or anything like that. So
no, that's the thing. They said, we have all this coalition, all this that basically we have basically these documentations from these experts that says, if you remember back in the 90s, they said, video games causes violence, music lyrics causes self-deletion, all that, and we've been through this numerous times. A lot of those politicians that were a lot of those politicians that were on those boards, on those Senate subcommittee hearings, are still alive today. Al Gore is still spewing stuff that basically is not accurate. I laugh at, because I've shown it on my show. I go back to the Twisted Sister, Dee Snider, when he was basically from the Senate subcommittee hearing, and he told them off. He says, "Listen, you guys are telling my music is about S&M. I forgot the name of the song." He says, "No, that song I made because one of my bandmates was going to have an operation and was afraid about going under the knife," which anybody who goes through an operation has that fear. And that's what the song was about. And then meanwhile, Tipper Gore and Al Gore were like freaking, throwing this out that basically, was about sex. And it wasn't.
Well, you have there's a difference between trying to protect innocent people, like children, and trying to exploit things for other purposes, right? And there's almost no way to discern that, right? Someone says, "Oh no, I'm trying to protect kids," and then, and when they're really not, it's.
Yeah, and I would make that, like I made that point about, we made the point about the books, being in the, school library. I personally would not ban that person from writing that book, even though I personally think it's disgusting and I wouldn't buy it, but I wouldn't ban them from writing it. But I am perfectly okay with parents coming and saying, "We don't want that book get
Well,
what they're doing.
see, that's the thing. You were talking about new Puritans or whatever. Well, these are the same people. These people are like, oh no, I'm going to use public money and schooling, to get a
Yeah.
captive audience and then force this on children. They're the same people that are turning around and saying, oh, your fan service anime is unacceptable. I've seen that on, again, I don't engage with this. I'm not part of the anime or manga, culture online, but I see it, once in a while where these people come off and they're like, oh, you're a, PDF because you like anime. It's like, what are you talking about? This is, it makes no sense at all. But those are the same people that are turning around and then saying, oh, children should be subjected to this or that,
Yeah, parents have control, or like parents have a right to, not have their children subjected to certain things.
Right.
And even
By
if
some
I think those
authority
things
that,
are,
that
yeah, even if I think those things are perfectly fine and harmless.
yeah, that's a whole nother issue
that's
of using other people's
choice.
money, usurping parents' authority. That's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it with the
Sure.
with these what they're doing here. But anyway,
I mean, if you remember, and because like I said, they deem anime pornography. If you remember back years ago, the Judas Priest lawsuit. If you remember that, about two young men who basically took their lives, and they tried to blame it on Judas Priest. And they had these experts that came out of nowhere that said, "Oh, it's in their lyrics," And there's a great video on it where the guy's like said, "Listen, it's saying do it," and the guy's pointing it out. The lead singer of Judas Priest comes out and he says, "You can think of anything of words that are on there that you might think that's there, but it's not there." And he proved it in the court of law, and the judge was like, "Yep, case dismissed."
All right, we're getting near the end here. If we want to sum up, and then we'll end the show. I don't like just Weatherman. I don't like romance book. Doesn't mean I'm going to libraries and books and yelling at people to check them or buy them. Yeah.
Well, all in all, this is something that we need to be ever vigilant and keep an eye on, because basically they just going to put to this perspective every time. There's always a new law that's being written every day. Most of them use the same templates, like the age verification laws. The age verification laws that has been going through every state are the same laws that Utah put together. And it's basically you have a group of people that just are going to constantly do this. They say, well, we're doing it to protect the children, but meanwhile, in this country, we have 300,000 children that were illegal, that illegally came into this country that are missing.
Yeah.
Are you going after these to try to find these children? And some of them are ending up in factories or on the streets selling stuff, cleaning stuff in factories that they're not supposed to. And you hear these stories day in and day out, but yet they try to focus on the entertainment industry. As far as, the entertainment's bad. We got to get rid of, the movies in Hollywood, the R-rated movies in Hollywood. We got to get rid of the video games and the music and the anime and the manga and the comic books.
Yeah. Well, you know what? So if I have a closing statement on this, I think in the end, laws are the worst way to deal with a problem. It's exactly. Like it should be the last resort. If you want a culture that doesn't promote any bad thing, then the best way to do that is to embody virtue in your culture, and make it so that's not the, it's like drugs. It's like, if they always try to target the supply of drugs. It's like, well, that you're never going to stop that, right? So maybe you should build a culture that doesn't have people that seek these bad things, and again, easier said than done, right? This is a very difficult,
never easy,
but a cultural solution is far superior to a government solution, because the government is by its nature coercive and controlling,
and it has a heavy hand and lacks subtlety,
and open to abuse. So it's the worst way to deal with the problem. But maybe it's the most expedient way.
Yeah. And I actually agree with that too. It's like, and the drug example is a perfect example. If we, if we could simply, I mean, will we ever get there? Probably not. But the more people we can, set up so that they don't need that type of, they don't feel the need for that.
Texas just put one out last night.
That would
THC.
be the better. Yeah, that would be the better thing, right? To make it so people don't, have no desire to use, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is, thing that we don't, that is not really good for us. That would be, and rather than coming in and heavy-handed slapping everybody around. Yeah. All right. I think that's about it. This is last thing would be say that I don't see in the near future. I don't see us ever solving these problems. So it's going to be it's really a citizen's job as being a citizen of a society to come and watch these things and find out and push the line push the line back, whether it goes too far to one side or the other side, to get it back into the reasonable point where society believes where we believe it should be. It's a constant thing we got to watch.
It's like what Pelosi, she says, oh, you got to pass the law to read it. I said, no, we got to read the law and understand what it means. And if it's viable for the Constitution, then you pass it. But if it's not, then you don't pass it.
Yeah, that always killed me. We need to pass the law. We need to pass the budget to find out what's in it. Okay. Sounds great. Madman, do you have anything you want to promote?
Well, in about 30 minutes, we got, what is it on here? I'm sorry. Let me just click on my phone here. I forgot what video is today. We got 2 videos today. Of course, we got the story on users of OnlyFans could go to jail in Sweden for using OnlyFans or for buying onto OnlyFans. And then I go into a discussion on what we just discussed right now later on today at 6 p.m. On Otaco Thursday as well. Do catch that as well, because I add a little bit more toward it to that conversation as well. So that's 3 p.m. for the OnlyFans video and 6 p.m. on the continuation of the Texas bill.
All right. I guess I'm going to have to shut down my OnlyFans page.
Oh, no.
No, it only affects if you live in Sweden.
Oh, okay. I'm safe then.
Yeah. Sweden is cracking down on this?
Oh, yeah. Sweden. Yeah. You can go to jail for just, not the content creator, the users.
Those Scandinavian countries are considered the most liberal of usually. It's interesting. And my my OnlyFans content was just going to be me looking lovingly at certain really nice
novels.
Yeah, look at this. Look at the art on this novel. It's awesome. Oh, that was going to be it. But anyway.
Great.
Cam, you got anything?
No. Sunday. Let's see. What's our next show? Sunday, Top Lofty Lounge at 11 p.m. Eastern. Tune in for more chitter chatter.
Only snobs. That's right. Yeah.
There you go.
Chitter chatter, and we're going to be looking at world building in science fiction universes. Not only, but a lot from movies, that kind of thing. To look at some of the best, maybe the worst if you can find them. The worst world building. Tools and jokes. I don't know if Cam has a tool segment. Those come up. You got to show up and be surprised. Dead from the Dugout next week. My understanding is I think
tentative plan is to do it on Tuesday and Thursday, right?
Yeah, I think Tuesday and Thursday again next week. I think Jason's going to be. I'm not sure when he's coming back.
He's out next week as well. He said
the whole week,
as far as I know.
Not coming back on Friday or Thursday or something. All right. Well, then we'll have to put on another show for if we can for both those days. Yeah, why not? Not sure what we're gonna talk about, but I guess we'll figure it out. Sci-Fi Tools. We did a show on. We did a show on Sci-Fi Tools already, James. It's back. I think it was one of the Top Lofty Lounge ones, right, Cam?
I'm sorry. Which one?
Sci-Fi Tools. We did a whole show on Sci-Fi
Yep.
Tools.
Yep.
The Dr. Screwdriver, et cetera, et cetera. But
Yep.
yeah, you can go find that one in there. Yeah. All right. Okay, that's it for the show. Thanks everybody for showing up. Hopefully we could keep you entertained since Jason is slacking in his job to keep you entertained.
Well, I'm here to entertain as best as possible.
That's right. We brought in the B team. It takes 3 of us to do what one Jason can do.
All right. That's right. And always bring in a guest to do the heavy lifting. That's the secret
right.
of
So if anybody else wants to come on the show and not get paid and do most of the work, and I'll just sit back and relax, just let me know.
Yes, Zathros is beast of burden.
That's right. All right. Thanks everybody for coming out. We'll see you hopefully Sunday and maybe next week on this same time here. Good afternoon, everybody. See you later.
Adios.
Bye.